adults affected by these diseases. So that means that we are funding research. We're looking at causes of IBD, treatments, and improving treatment options for more effective ways of getting into remission, and also improving the patient experience with those medications. Looking for a cure, definitely, and also preventing disease onset in high-risk patients. So all of those things are what the CCFA is looking at and funding research around the world. So we also have, on the other side of that, is helping folks out in the meantime. So we have resources for patients and for professionals who are dealing with these diseases on a daily basis. We have 40 chapters around the country, including one here in San Francisco, or just north up in San Francisco. I myself have been with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation for 3 years. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease at age 11, and so I can say that I'm an expert on this subject matter. When IRA invited CCFA to moderate this panel, I thought it was a really neat opportunity for us to get in front of a group of people who are helping us out. You guys are the future. You are helping us, creating the next Remicade, or whatever it is going to be a life-changing treatment option for patients like us. And so the main purpose of this session is to give you a glimpse into what it's like to live with inflammatory bowel disease. So these 3 patients have volunteered their time to share their stories so that you can understand the effect that chronic inflammatory disease has on an individual. So with that, we'll kind of go down the line here, and each of them will introduce themselves and give you a little bit of their story. And then we'll have some more questions, and then we will take questions from the audience. So be thinking of your questions, and don't be shy. So with that, I will hand it over to Ray.
Hi. So, nice to see everybody. My name is Ray Courtney. I have been diagnosed with Crohn's disease for about 10 years. I feel like I've had a pretty easy road, relatively, compared to some other folks who were diagnosed much younger and have had much worse symptoms. And my particular story starts with my father, actually, who also has Crohn's disease, and he was first diagnosed with ulcerative colitis when he was 24, which is actually very similar to what happened to me. I started to notice symptoms in college. The first doctor I went to at University Health Services sent me to a nutritionist to improve my diet, which was probably necessary. I ate horribly in college, but didn't fix the problem. So in my early 20s after college, I went to a doctor who told me I was too young to have any kind of colon problem and sent me away. So a couple years later, I came back. And that first time, I tested positive for Blastocystis hominis, which is a parasite I've tested positive for every time they've tried it, and every time I've taken antibiotics to get rid of it, and it's part of me now. So when I came back, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and that was roughly at age 24, which was exactly the same time it happened to my father. And then a couple years later, I got a colonoscopy from another doctor who changed it to Crohn's disease, and I moved from sulfasalazine, which made all of my bodily fluids orange, and went to Asacol, which is a much nicer drug. And I was on that for about 10 years. My father, at age 37, which I'm 35 right now, so I'm hoping that our futures start to diverge. At age 37, he had a colonectomy, and that was when he was officially diagnosed with Crohn's disease. It was supposed to be a routine scope, and they went in there and saw that things were really horrible. This was the early to mid-90s, and back then the solution was to start cutting parts out. So I was in high school at that point, so I wasn't particularly engaged, and my dad is not a particularly talkative fellow, so one of my issues with this disease is how little it's talked about, how there isn't a great public face for it. It's one of these topics that people don't want to discuss in most companies. So it's funny, I texted my dad this morning saying I was doing this, and I got 2 really long text messages back from him, which is probably more information I've gotten from him about his experience than the entire past decade. So when that happened, I was sort of exposed to Crohn's disease. So in each of my doctor visits, I came to them saying, my father has Crohn's disease, I'm experiencing these symptoms, what do you think? And it wasn't until the 4th doctor where Crohn's disease was confirmed, and that was probably a 4 to 5 year process to get there. So once I got on the ASA call, I was pretty good for almost a decade. It wasn't until last year where I saw blood for the first time, I got severe abdominal pain, and I needed to do something differently. So that was the first time I went on prednisone, which is magic, except that over long term it probably has horrible effects, but it works great the first time. I was very reluctant to move up to a stronger drug than Asacol because as it's been presented to me, once you move up, you don't come back. And the side effects of stronger drugs were not something I was ready to entertain. So I struggled the past year sort of trying to keep in check all of those things that I know have been triggers for me: lack of sleep, too much coffee, too much alcohol, running too much, all of those things, at least in my personal anecdotal experience, will cause Crohn's symptoms to get worse. I was on the maximum dose of Asacol for that year. I was doing Rawasa enemas, which was a new experience for me. And I was okay for about a year, and then basically this past spring, the symptoms I had a year ago came back, and we decided it was time to do something different. So I went back on prednisone to get things in check, and now I am on Imuran, which seems to be working. So I'm very excited for that. But I don't know if I just have a nervous doctor, but the side effects of Imuran and the immune system concerns, I've been having to do a lot of blood tests. I had got a cold, and there was lots of concern about what that would do and if I would need to stop Imuran, but so far it's been fine. So I feel lucky, like I said. My physical symptoms haven't been much, but this past year sort of explained to me, or hit home what the emotional toll of this disease is. Not until I got on the prednisone again and the Imuran did I realize how much of my mental state was sort of built in dealing with this disease in terms of where's the nearest restroom, how long can I go without going to the restroom, when it hits, how much time do I have to get there. I work at a startup, there's about 100 guys and 2 toilets. That's not a great equation for me. When can I exercise again, that kind of thing. And it's that combined with the fact that most people don't know what's happening and may not want to know what's happening. It's not a topic you can discuss. There isn't great role models out there. There's the bass player for Pearl Jam and the quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. And I know that because I have Crohn's disease, but I don't know if anybody else out there actually knows that. So there is a bit of a feeling of helplessness, and for me not wanting to bump up the strength of the drugs too quickly because I can see that there's a limited runway before you run out of options. And I've seen what's happened with my father getting the colonectomy, having to wear a colostomy bag. He's been in the hospital multiple times. He went through IV therapy, blood transfusions. He's been hospitalized twice for kidney failure, and he has type 2 diabetes. This isn't all Crohn's disease related. My dad's not a very healthy guy. But these sorts of things weigh on me. So getting healthy again on these new drugs has been great and has been a wonderful relief. And I'm happy for my life to get back to normal. And I hope it's at least another decade before I have to do something bigger and more drastic. And one thing that happened right at the time when I had my most recent flare was it seemed like the public conversation around IBS and IBD is taking a bit of a turn for the positive. I remember I watch Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO, and he has these pet topics, and a few years ago he latched on to IBS as this problem that people who eat poorly have, and you have irritable bowel disease because you ate too much McDonald's when you were a kid. That was very frustrating for that kind of misperception to exist. And I see the changes happening. There are people out there like Bethany Townsend and Blake Beckford. If you've been paying attention to recent news, Blake Beckford is a bodybuilder, Bethany is a model. They both have come out with these amazing pictures showing their stomas and their bags. And that happening at the point when I was beginning to recover was great for me. And it's been amazing to see how social networks have latched onto this idea. There's a lot of people out there now, showing their scars, talking about their experiences, and it's great to have that kind of support out there. And my family has been great rallying around me. My wife is here in the audience. She's pregnant. I'm very excited about that. But I'm also nervous. Am I going to be able to get enough sleep? Is my kid going to have Crohn's disease, since it seems to be hereditary in my family? So that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you so much, Ray. Thank you for sharing. Next we have Amber Morgieri.
Hi everyone, I'm Amber. So I had a very long road to diagnosis. It took over 11 years to be diagnosed finally with Crohn's disease. I was really sick as a young girl. My parents would take me to the pediatrician, and their response was, she just doesn't like to go to school, and just make her go anyway. I definitely held the record for most days missed every single year of school. And it was at one point, probably 6th grade or so, that the pediatrician finally said, well, I think you need to take her to see a psychiatrist because she's just making this up. And I refused to go because I knew I wasn't crazy. And so I just stopped sort of telling my parents when I didn't feel well. I would just stay home and say, oh, I think I have a cold or whatever, but I wouldn't go on and on about the stomach pain or the vomiting or the diarrhea or anything else that goes along with this lovely disease. So went through high school and college, and in college you're not eating well, you're not sleeping enough, you're committed to way too many things, and you're stressed to your max, and my symptoms just went through the roof. So I also sort of had the misfortune of attending college all the way on the East Coast, but my family's medical was only on the West Coast, so every 2 months when I got to fly home, I got to have 1 or 2 doctor's visits, and then go away for 2 months and wait and see, and 2 more months would go by, and I'd have another visit, and it was this big rigmarole that basically got me nowhere except for wanting to bang my head against the wall because I wasn't getting any answers. And at one point, my general physician said, I think you need to be tested for Crohn's disease. And it just so happens that this physician was my mom's physician and my grandmother's physician. My grandmother was very sick her whole life too, very similar symptoms to me. She was never officially diagnosed because at age 21, when they told her she had female problems and she had a hysterectomy, and her problems didn't go away, she, like me, got very frustrated with the doctors and stopped going. But so my doctor, I was 20 or so at the time, sent me to a GI specialist, and all the GI specialist did was an external visual exam and said, no, you don't need to be tested, you don't have Crohn's disease, there's no way. Okay, get back on a plane, go to Philadelphia, go to school, whatever. So after I graduated, it just was weighing on me a lot, and I was really, really sick, and I finally had to make the decision to leave my job that I took in Pennsylvania and move back home because I just couldn't get the care that I needed. And I was finally diagnosed in 2005 with Crohn's disease by a colorectal specialist who did a visual exam and said, I don't even need to do a small bowel follow through, you have Crohn's disease. I was like, no, they've said I don't. Let's play a different guessing game here. And sure enough, small bowel follow through, I had severe Crohn's disease, and it was affecting my ileum and most of my small intestines, as well as my esophagus and my stomach. So that started a bunch of 6-MP and lots of doses of prednisone. And prednisone is great, as Ray said, but I've been on prednisone a lot my whole life because I also have asthma, and so that's sort of the cure-all drug, and I think you probably all know there's really horrible side effects aside from having a moon face, which is so not sexy. But, you know, and wanting to clean my entire apartment at 2 a.m. because I can't sleep, I guess that's an upside. But it's not a long-term solution. So they were trying everything they could with the prednisone to get me sort of into remission to then figure out what better medication you could go on, because their thought was that if I'm already this bad in the flare-up, that these medications might not do their job, so we need to get it under control, and then we would move forward. And so we were trying this off and on for almost 2 years, and then in 2007, Crohn's disease almost took my life. I was on vacation visiting a friend in Oregon, and in the middle of the night, she got to rush me to the emergency room, and they sent me home with pain medicine and said, "You're just feeling punky." Swear to goodness, I would never use the word punky ever again, because this ER doctor sent me back to my friend's house, and about 6 hours later, when I was screaming in pain, she and her boyfriend took me back to the doctors. About 5 hours later, after they finally did a x-ray and a CT scan, they walked in and said, "You need to go to have surgery right now." And I probably had a dumbfounded look on my face. My mom had literally just flown in, got here maybe an hour before. And it was so emergency-based that they were literally wheeling me into the OR while they were hooking up an IV in one arm and having me sign a release with my hand. Like, that's how quick it happened. I had no time to think. I had no idea what was going to happen. And I woke up with an ostomy. They had to remove 22 inches of my small intestine. It had ruptured completely. And I ended up having another emergency surgery about 2 days later because the infection had just spread because there was so much toxins. Probably because, you know, I was just punky and I didn't really need any help. So that was rough. I actually spent more than 25% of that year in and out of the hospital. That particular hospital stay was 5 weeks long in Oregon, away from everybody. Thankfully, my mom stayed by my side. But getting to fly home was one of the best feelings ever. And then making it to my 24th birthday. That was the best birthday of my entire life in 2008, because I really, that year, didn't know if I was going to live to see it. I was fortunate enough to be able to have takedown surgery, so I no longer have an ostomy. My colon is still, knock on wood, not affected, but when they did, it was an emergency-based surgery. Again, I was having more blockages, and they found about 17 and 20 inches up from the site where they removed my small intestine, that there was more very, very bad Crohn's disease, but they did not want to cut out more and leave me with short bowel, and I was very young, blah, 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 blah. So I have 2 stricturoplasties, and I'm all hooked back up. So since then, I've been trying different medications. They put me on Humira at one point. I was in the less than 5% of people who are allergic to it. So that was a really fun experience. And I was on disability then for over a year, and it basically turned into me sleeping as much as possible, on and off prednisone, on and off 6-MP, because they just sort of didn't know what else to do. And I wanted to get pregnant, and I said I will do whatever I need to do to get off of all my medication. I don't care how crappy I feel, but I'm not going to have a baby on prednisone. And I did, and 2 years ago I gave birth to my daughter, and I have been in remission pretty much. I've been off medication as far as remission goes ever since. So my miracle baby, did her magic, and here I am. I do still have flare-ups. I've not gone a year without being in the hospital, and I actually, if I can make it till October 4th, I have not been in the hospital since October 4th of last year. So that's my goal right now, and I don't know if that's the best goal for a 30-year-old to have, to stay out of the hospital. So that's sort of my experience in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Amber. Next we have Kate Diamond.
Hi, I'm Kate, like Kathleen just said. And I just want to thank you all for coming tonight. It really means a lot to all of us. So I'm a 17-year-old and a high school senior, straight A student, and I want to be a future pediatric gastroenterologist. And on the outside, I appear to be a pretty normal teenager, but on the inside, it's a very different story. And throughout my early years, I was a very healthy child. Then suddenly in March 2009, I began experiencing subtle changes in my bowel movements. Within a month, my parents took me to a doctor. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in May of 2009, and just like that, my life was changed forever. The gastroenterologist prescribed Asacol and prednisone, and from the onset, my UC seemed pretty manageable, but aside from lots of trips to the bathroom. That summer, I attended my annual tennis camp at Pepperdine University in Southern California, and I had things pretty under control. In the fall of 7th grade, I was cast as a lead in the school musical, and I was feeling really well. However, my symptoms worsened in November 2009, and they bumped up my medication to 6-MP, along with increased doses of prednisone. The night of my school holiday show in December of 2009, I was rushed to the emergency room via an ambulance. I was very ill and was diagnosed with a life-threatening condition called toxic megacolon. I was prescribed even heavier doses of prednisone via an IV and other medications such as Flagyl. However, within a month, I was back in the hospital again. This time at Lucille Packard Children's Hospital, right around the corner at Stanford. For the next 4 months, I could not keep the disease in a manageable state and had to keep being admitted to the hospital for week-long stays. The amazing Stanford doctors called my case severe and unusual. My doctors and parents tried everything to keep my disease at bay. Holistic treatments, special diets void of gluten, dairy, rice, corn, processed foods, even sugar. I really wanted to get better, so I followed the diet religiously. We tried Remicade infusions, acupuncture, and even a little bit of massage. I was losing a lot of blood, going to the bathroom 13 times per day on a good day, and 20 times per day on a bad day. I became severely anemic and had to have multiple blood transfusions. Because I was sick so often, I missed out on the daily activities that a lot of the average kid experiences. I was so tired all the time that I had to also stop playing competitive tennis. When I was most ill, it was a challenge just to get out of bed and make it to school. But I really did enjoy school and wanted to go. Sometimes I was able to go to school, then come home and go right back to sleep. Most patients end up experimenting to find a medication that helps them keep their disease in check. I've tried many of the IBD medications. I've tried Asacol, 6-MP, which ended up being toxic to my liver, prednisone, suppositories, enemas, and also Remicade. On my 3rd Remicade infusion, however, I had a severe allergic reaction that constricted my airway, so that was no longer an option. Prednisone may have presented the worst side effects, even causing permanent damage of horizontal tiger stripe-like stretch marks up and down my legs. Other kids at my school assumed that I had cancer due to my extremely round face caused by prednisone, or anorexia because my body was not absorbing nutrients properly. I will never forget the time that I met with my math teacher after school, and he thought I was afraid of him because my hand was shaking uncontrollably to all of my medications. I also had to be tested for cataracts and osteoporosis because of the excessive heavy doses of prednisone. Nothing could slow down my disease. My doctors called my case refractory. No medication could improve it or put it into remission. You may be thinking, Shimei looks pretty healthy now. Well, finally, after many consultations with multiple doctors, I was informed a total colectomy was the only way I would be able to get well. So, removing my entire colon would make me feel better. My surgeon told my parents that after my surgery, I would feel 200% better, and he was right. The surgery to remove my colon was in the summer of 2010. The next 24 months were spent with an ostomy bag attached to my abdomen and a stoma I affectionately named Rosie. My greatest magic trick has been hiding my ostomy bag from my friends, which I've had off and on since 7th grade. Would you want your friends and coworkers to know if you had one? My next surgery in May of 2012 was at UCSF to remove most of my remaining diseased rectum and create a J pouch out of my healthy small intestine. The goal was to connect the J pouch to the rectum and in a couple of months say goodbye to that ostomy bag forever. My plan to become normal again was finally coming together. So in July of 2012, I had the reconnection surgery at UCSF and was so grateful to be offered those horrible medications and look forward to only having to go to the bathroom 5 to 10 times per day for the rest of my life instead of 20. Sure, I was sleep deprived most of the time. However, I was very happy to no longer have an ostomy bag. My journey was not over, however. In early December 2012, less than 5 months after my surgery, I developed significant complications from the reconnection that caused a fistula. My gastroenterologist at UCSF presented my case at a national gastroenterologist conference and was later approached by a GI surgeon from the Cleveland Clinic who said he could help me. So we were off to Cleveland. It was discovered that a technical error caused the fistula. We needed to divert the pouch, and I had the ostomy back again. However, Cleveland Clinic GI and surgeon who took on my case have been fantastic. I've been on Humira as they were hoping that the Humira will help close the fistula so we can reuse the existing pouch. If this does not work, they will have to create a new J pouch. That pouch redo surgery is scheduled for December 16th of this year. The next reconnection is scheduled for March 2015. I remain positive and hopeful that my next 2 surgeries will be successful. I speak at fundraisers and events like this to help spread awareness and help find a cure for IBD. I believe this has happened to me for a purpose, and I am determined to make a difference in the lives of others with IBD. I am focused on my goal of becoming a pediatric gastroenterologist so I can help other teenagers and children like me in the future. Thank you all so much for what you're doing to help find a cure.